their own parallel society, parallel bureaucracy, and that through networks of clientelism, patronage, they are giving jobs to only men whose wives are wearing the headscarf. So it has become basically a kind of conventional wisdom among secularist segments of Turkish society, like my own family. My mother believes that there is a very strong Islamization in Anatolia, that in municipalities where AK Party is in power, in municipalities where you have this patronage and clientelistic networks, you can only get jobs if your wife is wearing the headscarf, if you are a member of the party, and if basically you show your Islamic loyalties, conservative loyalties. And this is very, very threatening for women in Turkey, and they associate modernity, enlightenment, westernization with Ataturk. And they're nostalgic of that. So I think we need to understand their worries in order to understand this identity debate in Turkey.
Joost, you had word. This, by the way, I'd like to introduce Joost Lagendijk, who's the former member of the European Parliament, who's been very much involved in Turkey's efforts to join the EU, and now currently a senior advisor at the Istanbul Policy Center at Sabancı University. Joost.
Maybe following up on what Omer said, I think there, from a European point of view, but I think also from a Turkish liberal point of view, there's still quite a lot of support and sympathy for the efforts of the AKP to open up the system, to destroy some of these structures that were responsible for these killings, to diminish the role of the army. There's still this strong support and sympathy, but there are growing question marks about what actually their vision is, where they want to take the country. I mean, the issue with the headscarves and women is one issue. On a lot of other points, like the Kurdish opening, like the Alevi opening, there are a lot of promises and there are a lot of plans, but there is no implementation. So people start worrying. They talk nice about democracy, but are they able and are they willing to deliver on that? When they nominate people to important positions, it's always their kind of people. They never nominate secular women to an important position. And that, of course, strengthens the fear that there's one system that we all don't like is being replaced by another system that we also might not like that much. And that is becoming more and more of a problem. I think from speaking on behalf of those in Europe who want Turkey to join the EU, for instance, that's becoming a bigger and bigger question. And on top of that, I mean, the Prime Minister's behavior sometimes is a problem. I mean, he's not only a bully when it's about diplomacy and foreign policy, but for instance, he has this authoritarian streaks. Look at what he did with the Doğan Media Group, how he spoke out against critics. That's all reinforcing a little bit the image that he, but also his party has of replacing one system with another system that is also not very liberal. I think that is becoming more and more of a problem of AK Party. So I think they should be advised to at least deliver on some of their democracy promises instead of only promising more and not keeping to it.
Yes, I would just add that it's interesting that how much these issues, as Omer suggests, become intensely symbolic. I mean, it's ironic that in the next door to Turkey in Iran, women can't go out into the street without wearing a headscarf. And in Turkey, if you want to work in a government institution, you may not go into the building if you do have a headscarf. So a liberal response to this might be, wear whatever you want. We're free, and you can assign symbolism or no symbolism to this, because I think symbols are very different for different people. And especially in the Muslim world, there's a huge thing about the political message behind clothing. In Egypt, there's a huge hierarchy of not only women's, but male dress as well, as to where you stand in the political system by the length of your robe, or the way your hair is, or the way your beard is all of these things. So it can become a very complex thing when symbolism takes over from the freedom of expression. Ian. And by the way, let me introduce Ian Lesser, who is a senior transatlantic fellow at the German Marshall Fund of the United States.
Graham, thank you very much. I just wanted to add, I know it's not my sort of part of the agenda, but I couldn't help, listening just to add two things to the debate. The first, and I don't know that anybody mentioned this, but I think it's worth putting out there, is the economic piece of this. Because that transformation that a number of people have described in Turkish society, I think has a very strong economic piece to it. If you think about what's happened in Turkey since their own economic crisis in 2001, society that was growing at 6 or 7% a year, this was really quite transformational in a lot of different ways inside the society, in economic terms, of course, but also socially, because this question about the role of the military as a vehicle for mobility has eroded over time, because there are just a lot of other things to do in Turkey. And this, I think, is part of the dynamic that has been explored on the political side. Second point, I think, I find as an outside observer a little troubling, something that is going on in parallel with this Ergenekon business and other things, and that is the sort of erosion of a reform coalition in Turkey, people who were sort of secular liberals, people who were sort of commercial elites, but also secular, but liked the AKP agenda for years. This kind of broad coalition, people who are supportive of the European project, it just, over the last 2 years perhaps, has steadily dissolved, it seems to me, and it's worth speculating on what that means and where it goes. Just a final point on that. I think just as that has happened, I think you can look around in Europe and in the United States and see a similar kind of coalition that used to exist that was very supportive of different aspects of AKP, and this is beginning to fray at the edges. And we can discuss why that might be, but it's worth putting on the table that that's happening. Thank you, Graham.
I'd like to hear from anybody in the audience, too, with either questions or comments or rebuttals or anything. We're here to share thoughts with you all as well, and I know there are many people in the room who are informed on these issues, so please stick up your hand at any time if you would like to offer comment. Anybody so far? Okay. Yes, sir. And if you could introduce yourself. Just
I think the most basic question is whether Turkey is going in the right direction or not. We have answered a lot of, we have raised a lot of issues here today, but at the end of the day, two people, you yourself and Mr. Walker, openly say that you are openly. And my understanding, Turkey is moving in the right direction despite all the difficulties. Although we face some problems with Ergenekon and issues and so on, there is the European Court of Human Rights and Turkey recognizes the policy of the institution of the European Court of Human Rights. Therefore, I don't see a big source of concern there. And I wonder if each individual panelists would comment on whether we are going in the right or wrong direction. Just this okay.
Let me just say, sometimes the way you frame a question is particularly important to answer you're going to get. And so let me see if I can't frame this in a way. Right according to who? And I think for a long period of time, the answer was right according to the West, right? But when we talk about Turkey's internal political change, we also need to talk about the global context, and that's what we're going to talk about next. And I think it's important to point out that during the Cold War, Turkey made its bed, right? It decided what side of the divide it was going to be on. And so therefore, it was judged according to the Western alliance. And so it became a member of every major Western institution, NATO being the most important in terms of identity. But now that's changed, and I think not just in Turkey, but in the U.S. as well, in terms of the global environment, we're struggling to figure out what the unifying themes are for this century. And when you think about the major international institution that's grown out of this in terms of the financial crisis, it's the G20. And this is where I think Ian's point about the economy makes an enormous difference. It's easy to say that Turkey is on the right direction in terms of kind of its economic policies, in terms of liberalization, et cetera. But then the question becomes, is it kind of the European version of things? And when I say European, what type of European? Is it the EU model of things? Or are there different ways of looking at it? The EU